The summer my dad was a zookeeper. Boom, boom, boom! Adrian, the Siberian tiger is gone! How on earth could it have gotten out? Adrian cried. We need to head for the west entrance. I'll get the cage, Dan yelled. Go get the bait. You're probably wondering what a freshman student at Miami University is doing at the Columbus Zoo, trying to find a missing Siberian tiger. Well, that is only a portion of the story. My dad worked at the Columbus Zoo a long time ago, before I was even born. The story begins at my grandpa's house. It was the first week of summer, and my father had just sat down after dinner to watch TV. Then a PBS documentary came on about an old male gorilla living in captivity. It was a sad life for the gorilla. This documentary served as a large inspiration for my dad, because after seeing this, he wanted to go into the animal business. So he submitted an application to the Columbus Zoo as a seasonal employee for the herbivore-carnivore department. The job of a zookeeper is to clean the cages, feed the animals, and make sure the animals are happy and healthy. One of the first tasks my dad had to do was clean the African crowned crane exhibit. It's even harder than it sounds, the zookeeper said. Why is that? My dad asked. That bird is as mean as a rhino, he replied. The zookeeper handed my dad a flimsy rake. By the way, if the crane charges you, just poke it with the rake, and he'll probably back off, he said. Probably, Dad said. My dad walked out of the compound and over to the crane exhibit with his partner. They opened the gate and cautiously walked in. The air in the exhibit was foul. It smelled like a strong manure mixed with horse droppings. He felt like he was really in the jungle, with constant bird chirpings and frog croaks. All right, get sweeping, the zookeeper said. As my dad and the other zookeeper started their work, they kept watch for the crane. As they were nearly finished, my dad's partner went to the other side of the cage, since it had been about a couple minutes since in the enclosure and nothing had happened. So they let their guard down. Suddenly, out of nowhere, flap, 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 flap. It started to get louder. My dad spun around, and out of nowhere, the crane swooped down at my dad. Then he did the only thing he could do, thrust his rake forward, and with one hard bump, the bird stopped in midair and flew away. Was that the crane? Dad yelled. Did you poke him? He yelled. Yeah, but 1 inch closer and he could have killed me, he replied. About 3 weeks later, my dad was up early at the zoo every morning, and Jeff, on the zoo staff, would drive his golf cart around the zoo to feed the animals, almost every morning. When it was really quiet, like you could hear the wind blowing quiet, he would drive by the elephant enclosure and rev the engine of the golf cart really loud, and it would startle the elephants. I know that sounds pretty mean, but the elephant named Coco was just as mean as Jeff was. What's he doing? Dad would ask. Oh, Jeff hates Coco. I mean, can't stand him, the zookeeper said. Well, what did he do? Dad asked. Well, one morning, Jeff must have agitated him or something, 'cause that elephant picked up a rock with its trunk and chucked it as hard as it could, nearly took Jeff's head off. Whoa, really? Really? As they were talking, Jeff continued to rev the engine so loud that it could be heard all the way from Russia. Suddenly, Coco stood up, marched over to where he could probably see Jeff, and stared, like an old man staring at kids playing on his yawn. Jeff saw this, stopped, exchanged looks with the elephant, then drove off. Later that night, Dad saw Jeff starting up his engine of the golf cart to make his evening rounds. Dad couldn't help himself. He followed the cart to see if Jeff would try to annoy Coco, and to see if the story was true. As expected, Jeff stopped at Coco's exhibit in an attempt to seek revenge on that elephant. At the first burst of the engine, the gargantuan elephant rushed from his exhibit with his eyes filled with anger, and he blared the engine. As quick as a flash, Coco charged out of the trees, boom, 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 and as foretold, with a big rock in his trunk. And without hesitation, Coco launched the rock in the air like a shell from a mortar. Crash! Oh my God, Dad yelled. The rock had crushed the roof of Jeff's golf cart, and he was lucky. He was able to get out of the way before impact. Disbelief struck my dad as he gawked at what the Asian elephant had done. I don't think Jeff ever bothered Coco again. This was the summer my dad was a zookeeper. Also, there is a real zookeeper uniform in my basement to this day.